Hey everybody, it's Emily at Arc Schooling, and today I want to share, finally, my secret project I've been working on. So as you know, if you've been following me for a little while, that I created Build Your Library, a secular literature-based homeschool curriculum based around the ideas of Charlotte Mason's philosophy years ago. Like I've been doing it now for more than a decade, and something that people have been asking me to make for many, many years. I've always kind of gone, no, I don't know, maybe. And that is a parents' education course. Like a big component of Charlotte Mason's philosophy is something she called mother culture, which is the idea that, mothers should be continuing their own education to show their children that, hey, education never ends, but also to better themselves as teachers. And I love that. And it's something that I wholeheartedly believe in and that I have continued to work on throughout my many years of homeschooling. And whenever people would ask me to create something like that, I was just like, I don't know, you could always just use the high school levels for that. It's already there. And I didn't really know, what would that encompass? How would something like that come together? So last winter, I really started to sit down and think about it. If I were going to create a course like this, what would it look like? What would it include? What did I want to do with it? And I thought, the most realistic thing I could think to do would be to tie them to already existing Build Your Library levels, because that way you could be studying the same thing as your children, essentially. So in January, I started working on the very first of our, what I'm calling self-education levels. And the first one is one that ties in with world geography. So you could use this if you're doing level 0, or you could use it if you're doing level 7, or if you just happen to have an interest in world geography, this would be a great place to start. My goal is to keep these relatively slimmed down. This is not going to look like a full Build Your Library level because I want it to be something you could realistically do. So the very first level that I have created is World Cultures Part 1. And this is going to cover the continents of Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. And if this goes well, if people like it, I will create Part 2 next, which would include the rest of the inhabited planet. So let's talk a little bit about what you could expect from our self-education units, specifically speaking of the World Cultures Part 1. Something I really wanted for this was, like I said, to keep it slimmed down. I want it to be doable. I want it to be something you could look at and say, I could fit that into my schedule. So I'm not including a ridiculous amount of books, and that was hard for me because I like to read. I am a voracious reader, but I wanted it to be realistic. So I only have this stack for the whole 10-week course. So the spine book for both World Cultures Part 1 and 2 is going to be the National Geographic People of the World, Cultures and Traditions, Ancestry and Identity. I've had this on my shelves for a while. It's a gorgeous book, and I just really wanted to do something with it, and it just made sense for this. Because it's a slimmed down course, this is focusing specifically on world cultures. There will be other little bits of things tied in, but we're focusing mostly on just the people groups of the world. And I really like how this book is divided up. It's split between sub-Saharan Africa, North Africa and the Middle East, Asia, and that is what this level will encompass. But then there's also Oceania, Europe, North America, and Central and South America. So it covers all the inhabited places of the world and all the different people groups. It has gorgeous photography in it because it's National Geographic. Of course it does. And I think it's a very well done book. It doesn't include everything you'd ever want to know about each culture. So that is where I have brought in other things to round out the unit. So it includes a journaling aspect. You're going to be doing a lot of journaling. It includes outside articles and videos to watch to help you delve deeper into the subject matter. There are quizzes included if you want to take quizzes. If you find that enjoyable, it's there. You don't have to, though. If you find the quizzes intimidating, you can skip them. But I kept them relatively simple and straightforward, so it's not anything like overly complicated, and there is an answer key for them. So if you want to quiz yourself and then have your kids check your work, you could do that. And of course, we have literature, because of course it's a literature-based curriculum. Of course I'm going to include books. So I'm just going to briefly talk about the books that are included in this unit. My plan was to do one book per continent. However, Asia was a little bit bigger, so I ended up with 3 books for Asia. But for Africa, we are reading The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abby Daré. You guys have heard me raving about this book all year. This was one of my favorite books I've read this year, and I'm so excited for all of you to read this. This is a book about a girl named Aduni who lives in Nigeria, and she has lost her mother and is desperate to live out her mother's dream for her, which was to get an education. But her father doesn't really know what to do with a girl besides marry her off and get a dowry. And that is what he does. And she is devastated that she's forced into a marriage to this older man that she doesn't want to be with. And so the story is about her surviving all these trials that are put in front of her and how she overcomes them to finally get the education she desperately desires. It is beautiful. Aduni is one of my favorite characters in literature. She is amazing, and I loved this so much, and I cannot wait for you to read it. We have The Lemon Tree by Sandy Tolan. This is an Arab, a Jew, and the heart of the Middle East. I wanted to include some nonfiction as well as some fiction books, and this is a really great way to dive into the discourse and to the history of the conflict of Israel and Palestine. I think it's really well balanced. It's so hard to find something balanced because some books are going to go very pro-Israel, some books are going to go very pro-Palestine. I wanted to find something that would bring in both and give both sides of the story and both sides of the history, because it is such a nuanced and difficult topic, and I thought this would be a really great way to go about it. This book is very well done. It's very readable, even though it is nonfiction. It looks denser than it is. And all of these books, except for one, have audio. So if you are more of an audiobook person, you can use the audiobook for all of these, except and I'm going to explain why in just a second. Then we have The Complete Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. This is the only one that you won't get an audiobook for because it's a graphic novel. And this is one that I've had on my shelves for forever. I read the first volume. This is a bind-up of both volumes. I read the first volume way back, I don't even know when, at least a decade ago. And I borrowed it from the library, and I really, really liked it. And later, I found out that you could get the bind-up, so I bought it. And it's just been sitting on my shelves ever since. So I finally forced myself to pick this back up and finish it. And I had to reread the first one because it's been so long. But I'm glad I did, because this is phenomenal. If you are worried about a graphic novel, I think this is a good place to start. I find it to be easier to read graphic novels, especially when you're not used to them, when they are more simplistic with the art style. I find when there's a lot of color or a lot of stuff going on, it's harder for me to focus on the words. But this is very simple black and white illustrations. So I think it's doable for even a beginner for graphic novels. This is following Marjane Satrapi's childhood and adolescence, growing up in Iran right at the cusp of the revolution and everything that happens after, when there's the war with Iraq and all of that happening. So this follows her early childhood and the influence on her life, and when she's sent to Austria to live because her parents are worried that it isn't safe to live in Iran anymore. And so she's sent away to Europe, where she like grows up essentially. She lives there for her high school and early college years. Where does a person like this belong, who is so outspoken and so forceful with her ideas and thoughts, and doesn't really feel like she can live in a place where she has to hide who she is all the time, or be somewhere else where she's going to be othered. So it's a really beautiful story, very well done. I think there's also a movie that I keep meaning to go look for, but I haven't yet. Then you'll read Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata, because I wanted something light, because I feel like we have a couple heavy things going on here. So I wanted to find something to lighten it up a little bit, and I think this is a good way to go about it. This is a story about a woman who works in a convenience store in Japan, and like that is her whole life. It revolves around like figuring out how to be a person, and like making her whole identity a convenience store woman. And I think it has a lot to say about like work culture, but also it's just really weird and really fun. And it's very short, so like it's a quick, easy read. I think the audiobook was only 2 hours long. And I flew through this, but I thought it was really fascinating. And of course, for all the books that I'm including, there will be like discussion questions to help you get more out of the story as you read. And then finally, we have Independence by Chitra Banerjee Divarakuni. This is my second time reading this author, and I now really want to read more because this was absolutely stunning. This story follows three sisters who are living through the independence movement in India and the partitioning of India. They live right outside of Calcutta, so they're very close to what will end up becoming Bangladesh. And so like they're going through all of the things, and I don't really want to spoil anything and give anything away because there's a lot that happens in this book. But essentially, it's a story about three sisters and their love for each other and their love for their family, and holding on to like what they believe their dreams are meant to be, and like what they were supposed to do with their lives had all of this not happened. And it's really beautiful. It is sad, but I think it's done really well, and it's just like her writing is gorgeous. I really want to read more things by this author going forward. I think you're going to love this one too. In addition to reading all those books, I've also included poetry for each region of the world. I've included a movie every single week, so you have a movie that you can watch. I've included cooking activities, so you can make a recipe from each of the regions as you go. So there's a lot to do in this unit, and I just think it's going to be so much fun for you. I cannot wait. I've enjoyed my time working on it immensely, and I can't wait for you guys to have it. So as of now, it is up and available to purchase in our store. I will link it down below in the description so that you can go check it out. And all of this, by the way, will cost $19.95. So you can get a 10-week unit with all of what I've just described for you, except the books. You'll have to source the books separately, but for $19.95. And I hope you have a great time with your self-education. Let me know what you think of it when you've used it. I cannot wait to hear what you guys do with this. So thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in my next one. Happy reading. Bye.